Righto, you soggin' gits. Today we's painting Ork Knobs, so sharpen them choppers and let's do some hobby.
So here we have the Ork Nobz box. Let's take a look inside and we get some instructions, some transfers, the bases, and then the knobs themselves. So it comes on 3 sprues. You've got the bodies and different weapon options for each choppers, sluggers, lots of different heads and accessories, and the last sprue has what we want, which is power claws. So there's also some alternate options that don't exist anymore, power stabbers and kill saws, so I'm going to use those as power claws as well. So here's the claws. So we should have 5 arms as well as some alternate heads that we want to use. So we're going to clip everything off the sprues. So I just do these all one at a time. The bodies, the heads. Make sure you get a left and right arm for each one. The power claw has 2 parts, the main arm part and then the pincers as well. So make sure you get both of those parts off, and these alternate proxy power claw arms as well, the power stabber there, and the kill saw as well. So once I clipped those off and arranged the arms, I found that there was a little bit of a problem in that there weren't the right amount of arms and sluggers. So once I clipped off all the sluggers, I found that there weren't enough. So I'm going to use some of the other arms from the combi weapons to try and make up the right amount of left and right arms. So we'll come back to that, just get all the rest of the parts off. So shoulder pads, there's some normal ones and then there's some extra spiky ones to mix it up a bit. I wanted an iron gob for one of the orcs there, so I'm going to cut one of those off, and some extra armor plates for their shoulders, some little pouches. There's really quite a lot of little accessories that you can get. There's some other little parts, some boss poles. I want some of them to have boss poles but not all of them, and then there's a little ammo grot as well, so make sure you get him as well. He comes in 3 different parts. So at the end of that I have a bunch of different parts for the models, and now I'm going to go through the process of cleaning them. So using a blunt knife, I just cut away any of the sprue connection parts and the mold line. So all of these parts have a mold line that runs around the whole model. So just go around and scrape that all away. This is an older kit, so the mold line is a little bit more pronounced than some of the newer kits. So just make sure you get all the way around, including in between their legs. Brush off the excess shavings, so you'll have quite a few of those. You will get a bit sore holding these models for a long time, so make sure you're stretched and eventually you'll get through it. So now to come back to the problem of the mismatch between the power claws and sluggers. So I'm going to take some spare sluggers, or ones that are on the wrong arm, and cut the front part off them. So I use a razor saw for that. Make sure you wear a cut-proof glove because these things are very sharp and can be very dangerous. I'm going to file down the front and back half of those sluggers to get them matching reasonably well. It doesn't have to be 100%. Glue them together. So I'm then going to take one of those combi weapon arms and cut it down and do the same thing. Just glue the front of the slugger onto the base of the former combi weapon, and it looks like that. It looks okay. Now I'm going to start gluing everything together. So use plastic glue to put it glue down on one side and press the 2 parts firmly together. So there's the bodies, there's some shoulder pads which clip into these little tabs pretty nicely. Then next we've got the little front parts, different various decorations. So we glue those on. The power claws, those two parts of the power claw, first we glue those together, and then after that's done, get the sluggers, and I'm going to drill a hole through the barrel of the slugger just so the slugs can get out and it doesn't explode when you try and fire it. I think that's a 2mm drill bit. Now I'm going to glue the arms on, so just put the arm up so it's pointing in a direction that's reasonably forward. Again, these are orcs, they probably don't aim too much. And then put the power claw arm on as well. Then the head should be pointing roughly in the direction that the slugger is pointing. Again, doesn't have to be 100%. I expect these guys do a lot of firing into the air. And finally, some of the gubbins can go on. So I've got some extra armor plates, some little pouches and things, the boss poles. So this guy will be the boss snob, so he gets the nicest looking boss pole. And once they're all done, I'm going to start on the bases. So we mark off where the feet are, so we don't put any scrap and bits down where the guy has to be standing. I use skulls, some cork for rocks, and then just some random parts from my bits box. And yeah, just going to put some decorations on these bases. So I file some of the skulls down and cut some of the parts off to make it look like they're sunken into the ground a little bit, and glue those on. You can see where I've marked the feet comes in handy. Then I'm going to just rip up some cork and use that as some sandstone, and yeah, just random parts from the bits box, just cut those up and glue those on so it looks like they're just pieces of scrap out in the desert. And once that's done, it looks like that. And now I'm going to drill some holes in the knob's feet. This is to attach them to my painting rig and also to attach it to the bases when I'm finished. I'm also going to put magnets on these. So the magnets I had, they're not quite big enough to fit one nicely. So what I have to end up doing is drilling a bit of a hole in the base and then putting two magnets on. So once that's done, I've realized that there's a bit of a connection point in between the two halves of the body, so I'm going to use some sprue goo to try and clean that up. So sprue goo is just a mix of plastic glue and bits of clipped off sprue. It's really handy for filling in small little lines like that. So just apply some once it's dry, just file it down, and then I attach everything to my painting rig, which is just a piece of wood with some dowel on it. I've got some little washers on there to stick my bases, and some paperclip wire to attach the models. I really recommend doing this if you have a little bit of time, because it makes painting so much easier. So once they're done, I'm going to give them a spray in Wraithbone and the bases in Xandri Dust. And now we can start painting. So the first color is Plaguebearer Flesh. So I use this as like a base coat for my orc skin. So I get that down nice and thick, and this gives me sort of a base color that I can then put other greens of various hues and intensities down to give a varied look for the orc's skin, while still making them somewhat common in tone and have a little bit of uniformity to them. So just get around, do all of the skin parts for them, and then I'm going to use for the greens Militarum Green and Creed Camo. So just go over the top with that, and you can see that the yellowish of the Plaguebearer Flesh comes out underneath, especially in the highlights, and influences the greens. I also use contrast medium, and you can use this to thin down whatever green you're using to again vary how light or dark that tone is. So you can see once it's thinned down, it's a lot more translucent, so it lets a lot more of that plague bearer flesh yellow shine through. So doing this, as I said, can give you a lot of different variation in colour while still keeping it somewhat uniform. I go down to about a 50-50 mix to do the grots, so they're the lightest skin tone of all the orcs. It's basically pretty much a wash consistency at this point. So I'm also going to use Creed camo to do that, and you can see it's a much sort of darker green, but that plague bearer flesh still does influence the colour. So that's what they look like. I think it looks quite good to have a bit of variation in your orc mobs. So next up, I'm going to use some wraithbone to clean up any of the overspills. So just go over all the parts that you've accidentally spilt over, because you will get some. And then next I'm going to use a bunch of neutral kind of colours to paint their shirts. So browns, greys, I like to throw in a couple of clan type colours as well. So these are going to be Death Skulls, so I've got some Leviathan blue for one of the shirts there. Just a random mix of different ones for the shirts, and then also for the pants as well. I tend to do less bright colours for the pants, more dark and neutral colours for that. So just making sure you're getting the contrast into all the corners. Then I'm going to use 3 colours, so Black Templar, Snakebite Leather and Wildwood, to do all of the leather parts, so the boots and all of the various leather straps. So Black Legion is the next colour. I'm going to use that to undercoat all of the parts that I'm going to subsequently paint in a metallic colour. Then for the Death Skulls blue, I start with Teclis blue. So I put that down first on all of the parts that I want to subsequently go over the top with Talassar blue, because I find Talassar blue by itself is a little bit translucent and looks a bit sort of electric blue, whilst if I do this over the Teclis blue, it gives a much richer kind of royal blue that I really like the look of. Next I'm going to use Apothecary White to do some of the plates, just give it a an alternate colour so not everything is blue. Similar kind of thing with Blood Angels Red, so pick out a few armour plates and parts that are not blue or white in red, and then just some other colours as well. Some Nazdrag yellow for the little explosion glyph, and even some Black Templar and a little bit of Creed camo as well, just to give some variety to some of the little bits and pieces. I like my orcs to be very vivid and colourful. So once you've gone over all of the parts that you want there, a bunch of different browns to do some of the other leather straps that I did not do alongside the boots, so like their wristbands and things. So I'm going to use 4 colours: Lead Belcher, Balthazar Gold, Screaming Bell, and a little bit of Retributor armour, to just go through and pick out all of the metal parts. So I just randomly choose different colours, mostly Lead Belcher. Some of them I do follow some kind of logic, like painting the brass casings in Retributor armour. And I'm going to go over all of that in a battle mud wash. You can also use Agrax Earthshade. This gives the metals a sort of pitted, greasy, corroded kind of look, as opposed to using Nuln oil, which is what I would normally use for metals. Next, I'm going to lightly dry brush some of the Lead Belcher parts in Necron Compound and do a similar kind of thing with the original colours of the other metals. Next, I'm going to use some Wraithbone to pick out the eyes and also do a little bit of a cleanup. and go over the top of that with the eyes with Blood Angels red. I don't worry about painting the pupils for my orcs. I've just made a mistake there, so just make sure I clean that up, and yeah, just carefully fill in the eyes. They've got quite small eyes actually. Also going to thin down some of the Blood Angels red to do the tongue, some of the gums. Next, snakebite leather to base coat some of the bone parts, so their teeth and horns and claws. Going to go over all of those, and then go back over those with the wraith bone, leaving a little bit of the brown in the base. And then for these horns I'll do like some kind of striation kind of marks in those, just to make them look somewhat like real cattle horns. Next I'm going to use skeleton horde and then go over all of the horn parts as well as the skulls. Lots of those models have various skulls all over them, and their teeth and their fingernails and things like that. So just make sure you get everything there, especially into the eye sockets of the skulls. Now I'm going to use some various bright colors to go through and pick out all the little cables. Most of the power claws have little cables. Next, for the bases, I'm going to start off with Agrellan Earth. This is what's called a crackle paint, so you layer it on nice and thick, and as it dries it crackles, breaks up, and gives you a really nice effect, like it's a cracked lake bed or something like that. Next I'm going to use some PVA glue and some various grades of sand all mixed together, and I'm going to just pick out some parts, like maybe about a third of the overall base, and just like lightly sprinkle some sand on there. You don't want it too harsh, just to give a bit more variety to the base. Then I need to go and spray that again with Xandri dust, and then put Agrax Earthshade really thickly over it, making sure it gets all the way into all those cracks. Then Xandri dust again, and this time it's a dry brush, so I'm going to dry brush back over the top of that Agrax Earthshade just to bring it back to a normal kind of Xandri colour, and then do Tyrant Skull next to highlight all of that. Next, some Terminatus Stone just to do the skulls and the rocks. And so I've got a few different rocks here as well, so make sure you get those with the Terminatus Stone to just make them stand out from the ground a little bit. And then finally some Praxeti White just on the skulls to make them look really bleached, like they've been out in the sun for 100 years. So once we're done there, we can get some Black Legion and paint the metal parts on the junk bases. So just go around and do that, and then also some colors for some of the plates. So this one I'm choosing to do Nazdreg yellow. Next I'm going to use Lead Beltran Balthazar Gold just to dry brush the metal, just have a couple of different colors to get some variety there. So just go through, and you don't have to be too careful with these because the base isn't the focus. Then I'm going to use the Battle Mud Wash to really thickly coat the everything to give it a grimy look, and then to go the extra mile we use Typhus Corrosion and get that to all of the model, just random parts, especially where you think corrosion might occur, like where it's touching the ground and collecting moisture. Next I use Riser Rust to dry brush some of that over the top of the Typhus Corrosion, so you want it reasonably thick without going overboard, and just do that to all the parts where I've added some Typhus Corrosion, and then finally just a tiny little spot of Necron compound to make it look like some of that rust has flaked all the way off there. So that's about it for the bases. Finally I'm going to do a mix of Abaddon Black and Black Legion to paint the rims of the bases to make the tops stand out a bit more. So next I'm going to varnish them. So I do a 2-1-2 mix of thinner Flow Improver and satin varnish. I use an airbrush for this, just a cheap one I found on Amazon. but one with a tank is good. Also, you want to use a respirator. So just pour the varnish mix in and just do fairly long strokes up and down until you get a good coating. You might want to dry these and do several coatings. I use a hairdryer to assist in the drying time there. So you'll know when they've got enough varnish when they change texture a little bit and become quite smooth. So finally, we need to attach the models to the bases. So start off by looking where the feet will go and scraping off any of the larger pieces of sand. Then I use a little piece of blue tack and I put the model on and press it down, and what this does is it will leave a little imprint where the hole that is drilled into the foot is, so you can see it there, and this will let me drill a hole in so I can pin the model to the base. So pinning is just getting a bit of paper clip, putting it in that hole and cutting it off, and then super gluing the model to the base, and it gives an extra strong connection. So once that's done, the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get some grass tufts and glue those on too. So just a couple of different browny kind of colors. I use some PVA to increase the stick of the grass to the base. So once you finish that, they are done and ready to hit the battlefield. Hopefully you found this guide useful and you'll have your own orc war stomping the battlefields soon.